We'll go ahead and start with Coach Patenaude. You have a question? Kelly, go ahead and start us off.
I guess, a year ago it was all about Jeff, who's going to start, it's going to be Jeff, that kind of thing. How different is it when you kind of have a good idea of what the quarterback situation is to kind of prepare your offense for the season, to speed things up?
Yeah, I think you know a little bit more now about what you have. This time last year we were just trying to figure out what that skill set was, and his growth has been exponential. So you could do a lot more things now. I think that's one of the biggest keys is that you're not just spoon feeding him just little pieces at a time. He really understands more now, and you can kind of game plan around that. And it's always good to go in and have a guy that has been through it, and you've been through it together. And I think that's really a big piece with the continuity of being able to have a repeat starter, that you could build off of the things that you had in last year, the good and the bad, right? The mistakes, the turnover, the great throw, or whatever, and learn from those things, and so he is certainly still a work in progress. He's still a young guy. Sometimes there's still some head scratchers out there, but the great thing now with Jeff is I don't really have to tell him. He just knows now. Now he could say to me, I should have done this, I should have done that, instead of me saying, well, what are you doing with this particular read or whatever, and he's looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. Now it's like, okay, I understand, or hey, just follow through, or it's just little coaching points now of reset your feet, move them with your eyes, things like that instead of having to go through the whole play or the whole read, now it's just little coaching points, and he gets it and he just moves on to the next play. So his development has been really good, and that room has been tremendous. They're a very tight group of guys. They're all really competitive, push each other, they're critical of each other, but they also have each other's back, so it's been a fun room to be around. This is my 30th season doing this, and I don't know if there's been a more fun group of dudes to be around that just come in and do their work every day. So I'm happy with his development and having him back in that role.
Rob?
Coach Collins talked about now that you're behind you, a little more dialed into the number of snaps each guy gets. Do you have a pecking order for who's going to get the snaps?
It's funny with young quarterbacks. I mean, if I could get the starting quarterback 100% of the snaps as a young guy in practice, there's still so many different variables that he's learning. As you get an older quarterback, he doesn't need as many reps. He can stand in the back and watch and kind of understand. And hey, I've been through that, right? I mean, the Tom Brady's of the world, they've seen everything, so he doesn't get fazed by anything. With the younger quarterbacks, you still have to try to maximize their reps as that starter, but you still have to get your 2 a bunch of reps and your 3 as many reps to be able, because it's a long season, right? And knock wood, we've been through some tough ones over the years where you've had to play a bunch of guys. These guys are great because if one guy's going, the rest of the guys are standing right behind, they're looking over, they're getting the signal, and they're taking mental reps. So they're not getting as many physical throws, but they're going through the reads, they're going through the progressions, and they do a great job because they're really smart guys. They do a great job of standing in the back and communicating what it was. And then even sometimes whoever was in, when he comes out, they'll grab him and say, hey, this was this, that type of thing. So as many mental reps as you can possibly get is critical. And Coach, addressed that with the team today is, listen, we're now into, we're in the game modes. And every snap in every practice is critical, because when that play happens in a game, you have to be locked in. And that rep may have only happened one time in practice, because you can't practice everything. And you have to have seen that rep, know that rep, and then clued in. And so, we're going to try to I don't have really a set number, you know, and it's not like, hey, we got to get him 75-25 or things like that, but it's kind of a feel thing throughout practice. And then, you know, we script everything. So if there's things that I know that Jeff needs to see, then I'll just stick him in for a couple plays, pull him back out just so he gets those live reps.
Ken?
Yes, you know, I'm a long time worrying about what other people think about the team, but I'm curious, it just from everything we hear from you guys and some numbers that we get live and a lot of players back, do you kind of have a sense of what could be a bit better than most people think we are?
I mean, I think that we're better than we have been. I think we should be, right? I mean, we're in our third year. We've recruited, you know, good players. Our guys understand the scheme. The culture is really good. This is probably the tightest group of guys that I've been around in a long, long time. As a staff, as a unit, as a team, you know, we had a tremendous off season and camp in that regard. So yeah, I mean, the expectation should be that we're better. I mean, that's where we are. We're in year 3. You know, we've taken some lumps, as we all know, but it's all a building process. You know, and if you're not better in year 3 than you were in year 1, then you're not doing the right things. So, you know, I'm super optimistic about where we're headed, and you know, we kind of learned from those things that got us to this point, and you're just building, you know, an encyclopedia of knowledge of all the things that have gone right and gone wrong, and you continue to build. But you know, I don't really get into, you know, I'm old school, right? I mean, you know, I barely am on Twitter. You know, I really don't look at social media. You know, there's just too much negativity out there. I think the kids get so tied up with it. I think it's a really tough world to live in. If you are in that world and you're hypersensitive about what other people are saying, it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's, you know, if Coach Collins is happy with what's going on, then I'm happy, you know, and that's kind of where we go. And then, you know, really it's just a day-to-day process of getting better. And it sounds cliche, but, you know, in this profession, if you're worrying about what other people are saying, you know, you're going to be standing out there with those other guys at the end of the day. So after 30 years, I'm pretty secure with what we're doing.
Go.
Dave, you, for the first time, really have some depth in the slot position, and I guess does that open up opportunities to have 2 or 3 of those guys on the field, do some different looks and stretch defenses out away?
Yeah, and they can all run, you know, and you know, one of the biggest things is when you get in a 3-by-1 set and you put speed at 3, that's a totally different dynamic, because now that Mike linebacker, who traditionally is a bigger guy, you know, is going to stuff the run, and now he's got to go cover Kyrick McGowan, you know, and Kyrick takes off running 4-4 down the seam, you know, that's a different dynamic, you know, so you're able to mix and match those guys, and then you have the tight ends in where they could go in and out and get in some spread sets, and those guys have done a really nice job in the pass game. You know, Dylan Leonard's development has been super, and he gives you the ability to run and stretch the field as a big body. So it gives you some different pieces where you can move guys around. But if you put our top 3 slots in the game, I mean, all of those guys run 4-4. You know, so that gives you a different dynamic where, you know, can we get a little bubble screen out there, or can you just go 4 verts and say, hey, just run past dudes, you know? And then when you are able to move Jameer around, I mean, that gives you another guy that runs 4-4. So yeah, I mean, you have a lot more speed options to kind of stretch the field and get your best athletes out there. Gives the defense a totally different, you know, different dynamic.
Now, Coach, you mentioned your wideouts can run, and you also obviously have running backs can catch. And you mentioned your old school. Are you believing the short passing game is a form of the running game?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, your ability to add on to the run and throw a quick screen, throw a bubble, throw a hitch, you know, get guys out in space. I've said my entire career that I think the most difficult thing to do in defensive football is tackle in space. right? And so if you could get those guys just a little seam and get it on the edge, that takes the pressure off of your ability, to have to throw the ball downfield, and in today's, spread world, when those guys want to overload the box, because we have 4 legitimate running backs, right? So, hopefully you have to pick your poison, right? And you say, well, we're going to overload the box on 1st and 2nd down, right? And try to get you into a 3rd and long situation. And then we're going to get into our nickel and dime packages and drop 10 guys out of there. And then they're going to try to match speed for speed, So your ability to just throw the RPO game or the bubble game or, get the back out of the backfield and just dink him the ball, makes you that much more difficult to defend. And the cool thing is, and we're continually trying to get this to the quarterbacks, is, listen, big guy, if you throw it 3 yards and he goes 30, it goes in the book as a 30-yard catch, right? So check downs equals first downs. Just get it out in space. Let the athletes do a little something. And our receivers have done a tremendous job blocking. That's the thing that goes unnoticed, right? So you can't throw it out there if the wideouts don't make a block and you throw a bubble and it gets TFL'd or whatever. So, it's the whole thing working together. But, especially for Jeff's development is, being able to take what the defense is giving you, and just drop the ball off, run a little shallow cross or something and throw it to Kyrick and let him go for 20, And I always tell those guys, you look like a 20-year NFL vet, right? But, you're just being smart. You just give the ball to a guy in space who can run with it. And, everybody in the stands like, oh, my God, what an unbelievable read. But, you're just being smart, right? You just dump the ball, get it out of your hand. And I think the Qs are a lot more comfortable with understanding that whole piece of it and where my short throw is and just get it out,
Time for a couple more for Coach. Start with you, Rob.
It seems like the right tackle spot may still be a work in progress. You have 2 or 3 guys out there, and those guys have also been cross-trained.
Yeah.
So I imagine you look at that as a plus in the long run as far as getting the best spot on the field.
Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be, the goal is to play your best 5, right? So if your backup left, tackle isn't better than your starting left guard and the next best guy is an interior guy, then you have to have the flexibility to move people around. And, between, KJ and Nick Penley, those 2 guys being inserted into that group of guys gives you more flexibility to move guys in and out. I mean, Jordan Williams is an NFL tackle, but you have to be able to develop guys in behind him, And over the course of a long season, you have to have 8, 9 guys that are, very capable of going in there and battling. So, for the guys that are a little bit newer into the system, we've tried to maximize a lot of their reps. Ryan Johnson's taken a ton of reps. Well, Ryan Johnson's been playing football for a long time, so, he could get 8 or 10 reps and still be ready to go. Whereas some of the younger guys, you have to, kind of feed him in there. But Weston Franklin got a lot of burn in, with the first unit, and as a true freshman, because you have to be able to develop that next set of guys. So, it's a really, really good problem to have, right? If you have 8, 9 guys that you feel really comfortable putting them out there and being executed at a high level. And, as we know, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's what it's really about. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't, give a little shout out to Kenny Cooper, because, all of the things that he's gone through in his career and, some injuries, and he's been around a while. I mean, he's playing at a very, very high level, at left guard, and gives us the flexibility to play center and guard. So, yeah, we're going to cross-train those guys. Obviously, Brent's a tremendous offensive line coach and gets those guys ready to play. But over the course of a long season, you're going to need a good core group of guys that you can put out there.
Ken, if you want to wrap this up.
Is there, like, I think, hopeful and optimistic you sound, is there like a question you have or worry you have, like, we don't know quite this, whether it's another receiver or whatever, or right tackle or whatever, that you're like, okay, this is one thing.
No, not so much that. Is just getting out there and doing it when the bullets are flying. You know what I mean? And being in Bobby Dodd, 7:30 at night, right? And having to play, you know, a real game situation, you know, under the lights with 50,000 people here. You know what I mean? That's different. And, you know, we have to be able to execute at a high level. And, you know, until you're in that fire, you don't really know, you know. But if all things continue the way it is, you know, now, again, you know, you're as a coach, you're always saying, you know, well, this and that. And so you have this, like, Rolodex of, you know, things that have to get right. But I don't think positionally there's one thing that we're saying, well, you know, can this guy play? Like last year, you know, we're opening that Florida State with a true freshman quarterback, right? You know, I didn't sleep very well that night, right? So I'm sleeping a heck of a lot better now, you know, with those things. And, you know, you just got to get in there and battle with some live reps.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach Patenaude.
Thanks, guys.